Hello! If you're watching this, then you're probably my professor or the TA or one of my classmates. If you aren't any of those people, then I have no idea how you got here, but welcome. Today, we're going to talk about moral exclusion. It's a term coined by Susan Apatow in 1990. Susan Apatow earned a PhD in social and organizational psychology from Columbia University in 1987. She is currently a professor at the City University of New York. But what is moral exclusion? In 1990, publications entitled "Moral Exclusion and Injustice" and "Deterring Moral Exclusion," Apatow defines moral exclusion like so: moral exclusion occurs when individuals or groups are perceived outside the boundary in which moral values, rules, and considerations of fairness apply. Those who are morally excluded are perceived as non-entities, expendable, or undeserving. Consequently, harming or exploiting them appears to be appropriate, acceptable, or just. But what does this actually mean? In societies, many different groups and identities can coexist. When there are no issues, this often works out fine. But when a majority group identifies a minority group as a threat in a zero-sum conflict, moral exclusion can occur. What happens when moral exclusion occurs is that a group is pushed psychologically speaking out of the bounds of moral society, usually via means of dehumanization. Once this group has left the bounds of moral society, any harm that comes to that group is okay or even justified. Apatow lays out 5 steps in which this often occurs. Conflict of interest. For example, a country who takes on refugees but weighs its own national interests more heavily than the needs of those refugees. Then comes categorization. Apatow describes categorization as salient, meaning that it can be based off of anything. For example, race, country of origin, legal status, and almost anything else that can be used to describe a person. Whenever conflict arises, these categorizations become far more meaningful than just a descriptor. Next comes moral justifications. Doing harm to an immoral enemy can be seen as a victory and can justify that harm. After this is unjust procedures. When harm is efficiently dispensed through procedural means, such as through a legal system, it can be seen as the rational means to accomplish the ends of one group over another. Finally, harmful outcomes occur. This can be anything from the worsening of material conditions to injury or death or even psychological damage. But this paper was published 35 years ago. Surely this isn't a problem anymore, I hear you say. And to that, I'd say you're absolutely right. Surely there are no populist leaders spreading lies and misinformation to other already marginalized groups as justification for heinous acts committed against them. Surely they don't use acts of resistance against injustice as further justification for genocide, displacement, and dehumanization. And stop putting these images on the screen. You're ruining my argument. So, obviously it's still an issue. But what can we do to combat it? Al-Patow says that the bystander plays a crucial role in deterring moral exclusion, but what else? A 2024 study entitled "Moral Elevation Mitigates Dehumanization of Ethnic Outgroups" shows that exposure to content that shows ethnic minorities acting in a morally heroic way can reduce dehumanization towards those groups of people. In the study, participants were given a list of 15 traits that are often used in dehumanization research. Examples include words like savage, primitive, or refined, which was reverse scored. Participants rated each trait on a 1 to 7 scale, with 1 being the lowest and 7 being the highest, for a set of racial groups. The groups included their own group, white Americans, and also included African Americans, Mexicans, and Muslims. Researchers averaged out the scores and then compared the groups who saw the morally elevating content against the ones who did not, and found that the group exposed to the morally elevating content tended to rank lower on the dehumanization scale. Simply put, as the moral estimation of a group went up, dehumanization tended to fall. That's all I have. Thanks for watching.